I will call the meeting to order for July 10th for the Fiscal Committee. And note that we have a replacement for Representative Wallner. Representative Heath is on the House side to replace her. And while we're all here, I thought I would mention that two of our long-term colleagues have each lost a son, Mark McConkey and Bruce Berkey. So I would ask that we rise and give a moment of silence, sympathy for the families. Thank you. Okay. Item number one is the Youth Development Center Claims Administration and Settlement Fund. We have Jennifer Foley here, if anybody has any questions about the item. Thank you for coming. Good morning. Does everyone understand the item and have any questions? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I understand the item. What I don't really understand is why the administrator needs to pause the claims process for two months. So could you please explain that? Thank you.
Hit your microphone.
No. Is that good?
Closer.
Is that good? Okay. Sure, happy to answer that. So we put a temporary hold in place that actually is, in somewhat, it's partial. There are areas of claims processing that is continuing, and there is areas of payment processing once we got over the fiscal year changeover that are continuing. So the temporary hold was on some portions of it, but not all of it. And the reason for the temporary hold is we have legal documents that need to be changed due to the statutory changes. There's significant, substantive and procedural changes that the Senate Bill 591 put in place. So we have to take those forms down. We have to take the claims processing document, the claim form itself, the valuation guidelines, all those set of legal documents that joint fiscal is required to approve for us to move forward with under the new statute that applies to pending and unresolved claims and also all new claims that are coming to us. So that's one of the primary reasons, is that we are in a transition period.
Thank you. But then that bill was signed some time ago.
Yep.
How long does it take for you to do that work?
Yep. So the bill was signed on June 14th. So part of the work, let me give you just sort of the pockets of work that we're doing right now. One is assessing which of the claims in front of us are in the pending and unresolved state, the new claims that are coming in, to make sure we're sort of doing an appropriate inventory. And some claims were close to being resolved. Award letters had gone out, and so we needed to assess, and we are assessing which claims are in somewhat governed under the old former statute, right? So we're kind of making that inventory. That's one area of work that our staff is doing. Another area of work is the legal documents that need to be revised. That involves folks beyond Administrator Broderick. So we have Representative, the Attorney General designee is present with us today, Laura Raymond, who's taken the place of Jennifer Ramsey as the AG designee. And the Attorney General's office has essentially the charge of making sure that set of legal documents is revised appropriately under the statute, is getting the input needed from Claims Counsel and also from our office. And we're also teaming up, actually. There's about 4 or 5 significant legal documents that takes, lawyers and others to get involved from both of our offices to work together and to coordinate. And so I don't want to get ahead of Laura Raymond speaking to what process the Attorney General's office is doing, but we're having a series of meetings. Just yesterday, I got another legal document to look at and to get back to the Attorney General's office by Friday. I also gave them a legal document. So it takes that time to make sure that the new statute, the new revisions are appropriately applied and then brought to joint fiscal. I believe August 16th is the next time joint fiscal meets. In advance of that meeting, we'll be getting those revised legal documents for joint fiscal to review and hopefully approve relatively quickly so that we can go ahead and apply those new documents into the claims process itself.
Good. And maybe this is really a question for the Attorney General's office, but the news reports seem like the plaintiffs or the claimants, let's say, are not really getting the full story on what the revision to the statute does. So it seems like they're not getting the information that if they're getting a multi-year payout, they'll also be getting 5% interest every year. And so I'm wondering who between the administrator and the AG will be explaining clearly on a website what the changes are to the statute and what the true story of the multi-year payouts is. Will that be the administrator's office or will that be the AG?
That's a great question. So transparency is our top priority. We understand that making sure that there is clear information publicly available so that there's stability in the system and stability in the fund, and people are confident that the appropriate work is being done and done on time so that we can, resume all claims processing and all payment processing as quickly as possible. So we we monitored when the bill was signed. The Attorney General's office told us right away. We posted those changes on our website immediately. So on our website, the very opening paragraphs explain that this change is in place. The chapter version of the bill was posted on our website immediately. We do, as a neutral standpoint, we do strike the balance between we need to explain to claims counsel what the statute means and says versus they are, I'm not trying to be cute in this, but they are lawyers and with the statute being posted on our website, they are knowledgeable about the 5% interest. I think the place that our office is working very hard to be transparent with is getting, we get out guidelines they're not joint fiscal approved guidelines. They're more like guideposts, I suppose, that give a little bit more plain speaking or layman's explanation, right? And so we want to make sure we're coordinating carefully with the Attorney General's office and with Claims Counsel to make sure that the expression, our layperson expression, is in line with all expectations. So that is something that will be posted on our website. Those are part of the forms and the instructions and the guideposts that we are working on revising now. And I believe it's next week that the Attorney General's office is hosting a listening session with Claims Counsel, where there will be, we need to hear where any areas of confusion are so we can make sure that the forms that we revise are satisfying that confusion and we have maximum input so that we can make sure our instructions and forms give the layperson's expression.
Thank you.
I'm about the most hard of hearing. Could you bring the mic?
Oh. Sure. Yep. Did you want me to repeat anything?
No, you're.
Okay.
All right. Representative Leishman for a question, followed by Senator D'Alessandro. Representative Leishman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for being here. This may be a question more appropriate for the representative from the Attorney General's office, but you mentioned there are new claims coming forward. Apparently, they keep adding up. There's hundreds and hundreds of claims and complaints. Where do things stand? I think there are only like 10 or 11 people that have been indicted so far. how is that side of this whole thing going? And again, probably the question for the representative from the Attorney General's office.
You're right. That question would be for the Attorney General's office in terms of asking the status of criminal indictments. That's the claims process office is not part of that.
Thanks.
Senator D'Alessandro for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quickie on two questions. One is, the Attorney General's office prosecutes, defends, and then makes decisions. That's a triple header, right? They prosecute those who are criminally intent. They defend the state against this, and then make decisions. How does all of that work? And my second question is, I've had an individual come to see me who claims, he was a recipient now, who claims that he wasn't fully given all of the information that he thought was required. He settled, he said he signed this document, he showed me he signed the document for 400-something thousand. He thought he was going to get 2.5 million. And real problem there, real problem. And I did speak with the administrator about it, and that problem seems to have been reoccurring. How do we solve that?
So in terms of getting information to folks along the way of the process, I can speak to that portion of it in terms of what the claims processing office seeks to do.
Yep.
And we certainly do our level best to give people information in advance of them needing to make critical decisions in their life about whether they're going to accept an award, withdraw from the process, or however they are choosing to engage with the process. And we get that information to them in advance. Whether they're personally receiving the help that they may need as individuals next to them to translate the information, because even like a layperson's description on our website can be, I think, sometimes hard for claimants to understand. And there's another example, the waiver and release forms that are obviously very important forms to read and understand and digest before you choose to accept an award. I'm not going to speak to the Attorney General's office because they're in charge of those forms, but in my working side by side with them, I see that they work also very hard to have as much as possible in a legal process, a layperson's description. What else can we do? We can keep hearing. It's very important for us to hear areas of confusion so we can go back to those forms during this revision process and say, is there a way we can do better? Is there a way we can give a more clear expression? We have a lot of people that gives us input. Let me give you an example if I could. From the beginning, we hired trauma-informed experts that are non-lawyers, which I think can be a very important part to have part of any communication process with claimants, to read our forms in advance of us putting them into the process in live fashion. I work, with folks every day and saying, okay, this is my lawyer perspective. Now I go along to my staff who has different experience in different areas, including my trauma-informed experts, read those forms and say, have we met the balance where the legal expression is there, but it's also as much layperson as possible. Even early on in the process, we had Commissioner Hanks review some of our frequently asked questions because we know we don't have the perspective of those who are residents of Department of Corrections and what kind of educational level in language we need to use. So that's something we endeavor to do every day, all the time when we're revising forms, is to try to strike that balance. Whether we always hit it, we love to hear the feedback. I often get calls from press, and I say, hey, I would love it if you would review our website and review our frequently asked questions and let us know where it's confusing. And I have folks sit with me in the room and take down the notes that press is asking, because I could say they are our best litmus test as to whether things are clear or confusing. But it does take time. That once I hear that, we still have to go back to the documents and say, okay, where can we make some tweaks?
Sure. Okay. appreciate that.
Yep.
I did contact the administrator, discuss this with the administrator. Maybe some of you also got these calls, but I get a call from a guy who says, I'm ready to commit suicide because the deal that I made wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I'm living in a car. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I'm ready to take my own life. I mean, I don't like getting those calls, obviously.
Yeah.
And I can't solve it. I'm not, I can only refer back to you or to the administrators as to what's kind of going on here. I don't know how many of these kinds of circumstances have developed when legislators have been involved, but I know in my case, I've had those calls.
Yeah.
I think we've done everything we can here at the legislative level to make things better for all of these people. You know, we did the initial bill. We got a secondary bill because we found out that there were problems with the original piece of legislation. And as Senator Roosevelt pointed out, they are not getting the shaft by having an extended payment schedule. They're getting paid for that. There's an interest that's paid if the payout is elongated. So I just worry about the whole situation, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be a lot smoother, and I'm very worried about it. That's all. I pass that on to you, and I appreciate the kind of work you guys are doing, but I think there's trouble in the bubble, and that's all. And I want to make that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Edwards first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is kind of a question to you. Given that this is a fairly straightforward request to hire one assistant administrator, and there are so many questions, I wonder if we should schedule an information briefing at some point for the Fiscal Committee so that the rest of these questions could be explored. I have questions that I'm not asking because it's not
Now's
pertinent.
the opportunity. We're not on a tight schedule here today. And if you, and I'm hoping the Attorney General's person comes back, because I know some of you have questions for that person, so.
So in that case, I have a question, but it's for the Attorney General person.
All right, so, and I think some of us also had questions for the Attorney General, and don't know what happened to her.
Mr. Chair, Chris Shea from the LBA's office. The representative from the Attorney General's office had to leave, so there will be nobody here for the rest of this meeting from their office. I believe on the 16th, when is the intended date that fiscal is to meet again, and at that time, the revised documents would come forward. The Attorney General would be here for that as well. So I don't know if you want to kind of make that a meeting where you focus some of these questions, or if you want something before that.
Yeah, there's something that people have asked me, why isn't there a lie detector test for these things that keep coming up and, oh, it happened to me thousands of times and so on and so forth. And you know, we're not relying on that at all. It seems like a lie detector test would prove how many people are lying or they've been coached by the lawyers or whatever. And, you know, there's a lot of suspicion of all this. And I read in the paper, somebody borrowed $160,000 based upon the fact he thought he was going to get a lot of money. And somebody loaned him that money based upon the fact that, oh yeah, you're going to get a lot of money out of this deal. And so, you know, this is troubling. So, you know, I thought she would stay here so we could have some conversations about this.
I actually, she had, I'm sorry.
It seems to me that this is a pressing issue.
Yes.
Why would the Attorney General leave?
Yeah, what else was more important?
I mean, what else, exactly? We're talking about the lives of New Hampshire citizens.
Yep.
We're talking about a lot of resources that we're expending in order to do this. And we have questions, people have questions on the board that they'd like to bring forward. And the next opportunity would be a month from now.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Just doesn't make any sense.
What we will do is send all our questions to Mike Kane, and he will forward them to the Attorney General So they will be ready to give some answers, because I want to know why we're not doing lie detectors. You know, and we all want to know, why haven't prosecuted more people? Why haven't they identified more of these people that have been doing the abuse? And can we get some number out of them? Because the two numbers on the both sides don't make sense. 100,000 people are all going to put in claims that they were abused by a handful of employees. It makes no sense. So, Representative Lowe's.
I do have a question for the administrators.
What's that?
I do have a question for
You
Ms.
may
Foley.
ask your question.
Thank you. Does your office have a projection for the administrative cost for the next fiscal year that will be drawing out from the fund?
So administrative costs, in terms of from our office, are also including the Attorney General's.
From your
survey expense.
office, which was about 2 million in the last fiscal year.
The answer is yes. I don't have that number in my mind right now. I can get it for you. We did put together an operating budget to put in front of the Attorney General's office, and so that we could all sort of be on the same page as to what are projected costs and expenses. We have brought in folks with a lot of financial experience in terms of being able to monitor the fund carefully and project expenses, monitor actual expenses as the months go forward in order to have a lot of financial transparency for joint fiscal. We've had several meetings with the Attorney General's office and representatives there to prepare for that, so that for this next the next appropriation, we are accounting for anticipated expenses from both of the offices, plus what the awards are going to look like that come from both Administrator Broderick's final decisions that are accepted, and also we anticipate that there will still be some stipulated agreements or settlement agreements that go directly with the Attorney General's office that also run through the claims process and come from the fund. So all of those four buckets, we are doing the best we can to get that we've done some actual projections and then actual watching on a monthly basis what the impact on the fund is.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask that we request that we all see that budget?
Very good.
Thank you.
Send all these questions to the LBA. We'll forward them to the Attorney General. I'm hopeful that we can move forward in this process by approving this request. And then, obviously, we'd have to come back because of changes. And if we, in the interim, we send all our questions to the Attorney General, it may affect what he comes back to us with a proposal in about a month. So I'm hoping we can do that. I wish we had the Attorney General here now, but in lieu of that, I'll send questions forward. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the item so that this can begin.
I would also move the item. But if I could just say something, Mr. Chair. So a little disappointed that there's a hold for 2 months on paying any of the claims. I think it's not the best look, but I guess first question, you will be ready by the 16th with any of the rule changes that we in fiscal need to approve?
Yes.
Okay. So I would also say that there were extensive hearings on my bill, Senate Bill 591, which made these changes. The Attorney General did testify in front of the Senate. I'm assuming he testified in front of the House. But given the magnitude of potentially 1,000 claims and the average cost of $500,000, I think the legislature is going to be in the business for quite some time of having to fund these settlements. So it would be helpful for the Attorney General to be able to testify. But he is, I also have to defend the Attorney General. He's been pretty upfront with at least those of us in the Senate, and I'm assuming in the House, going back to, when my good friend Karen Umberger introduced her bill a couple of years ago. And I think he's taken the lead on trying to resolve this issue and has done a really admirable job. But, you know, like anything else, a lot of money at stake. So we need to keep a watchful eye on it. But we're not going to be able to move forward if we don't approve this position today. So having said that, I hope we can all vote to approve this position. Thank you.
All right. Representative Edwards moves, Senator Bradley seconds to adopt the item. Further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is adopted. Thank you.
Do you mind if I clarify a couple of items? Thank you. Payment processing was the first thing put on hold and has started to continue. So as of yesterday, probably at least 10 went forward that were award letters that were accepted in lump sum and under the former statute that were put on hold to get through the fiscal year changeover. Those did go forward yesterday. Also, what went out yesterday to Claims Council was basically a call for information on the periodic payment question. So there's a whole series of final decisions that are sitting on my desk that cannot go out until the administrator makes a decision about whether it's a periodic payment or a lump sum under the new statute. So we sent out a request to those council that have those claims to get us information by the middle of August so that the administrator can go ahead and make that discretionary decision. So some of payment processing is on hold simply because we need to get the information to the administrator so that he can make the type of payment. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm also aware that Ms. Raymond had a court date at 10:30, which is why she needed to leave. So
There wasn't anybody else that could come?
I can't speak to that, but I just wanted to at least clarify that. But
Appreciate that. It's not a good look for the state to see all these people coming forward with all this abuse and the fact nothing was done for decades. So when they put a further delay on it, it's, cover up, you know, and all this other stuff. This is not a good look for the state. And we're all working hard to make this the best state. And it falls on us to say, what did you do about it? You know, this kind of thing. And obviously, people are very attuned to get a hold of the senior senator here because they know he'll get things done. So he's getting calls from all over and saying, what are you doing about this? You know, and it's not a good look.
yeah, yes, sir.
And we have to do our best to move this forward and show that we're being fair and that we're doing something. But the fact that so few people have been charged with crimes and it took so long to get it to this point. These things are all very negative looking for state government, and we're all upset by it. And we're ready to move forward by it, but we have to have some things done that have a good appearance.
Yes.
That really something is being done and it's not being pushed away, it's not being delayed, it's not being trying to shove it aside. And plus, the greed of the lawyers is coming to light too, with the fact that, you know, 33 1/3% of $100 million, give me a break. You know, this is just people having a low opinion of lawyers enforced when this kind of thing happens, so. Representative Leishman for a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you know what remains in the settlement fund at this point?
Well, we've had an appropriation changeover, if you will. I'm not sure that's the right terminology. So the first 100 million that was appropriated, that has been expended through awards or expenses. And then the next appropriation is the 60 million. And I do not have status right now of where we are at the 60 million. But that is something that we're working on as part of this transitionary period, is making sure we know exactly where we are with the 60 million as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we have voted to pass the item and will be in further conversation. We will be expecting to send forth a lot of questions to the Attorney General. Someone should have been here to answer them. And obviously, we'll have to have a special meeting just to prove what does come forward from the Attorney General and your office. So thank you for being here and for taking care of this mess as best you can.
Yes, we'll do it
Anything
together.
further? for This lady? Seeing none? Thank you. All right, number 2 is old business. I'll recognize Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recommend we take the old item off the table and replace it with FIS 24-227.
All right, motion and a second to move it off, the old item off the table and replace it with FIS 24-227. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll remove that item from the table, and I see the Chief Financial Officer here to discuss or answer any questions on the item that was before us and brief us on the change. Mr. White, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Weiler, members of the committee. Nathan White, Chief Financial Officer with the Department of Health and Human Services. The difference between the tabled item and the item sitting before you is the removal of approximately $35,000 of opioid abatement funds that were to be earned. Senator Rosenwald and myself had a number of conversations around this, and we thought the best path forward at this point in time would be to move the item forward without the inclusion of those funds at this point. And I can pause there unless you'd like a higher level overview of the item.
Thank you. Questions from the members? Seeing none, is there a
Move the
motion?
item.
Motion and a second to approve the item 24-227. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. So we will meet again. I see Mr. Kane went away, but Pam will tell us it's the 17th. Was that the decided date, August? 16th, I'm sorry. August 16th. We will hope to have all the information to deal further with this item and move it along. Yes, fiscal at 10 o'clock on Friday, the 16th of August. Is there any problem with any of the members here today? Seeing none, we'll put that in the schedule. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any further? And seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.